One of the most important things I think looking forwards is if Malaysia's going to establish itself as a digital hub, we've got to get the hiring right. How we go about identifying talent and most importantly, developing and retaining talent. I guess over the last year, most businesses are looking at this differently based on the experiences they're taking. Again, hopefully for the positive, because businesses have had to simply improve to keep the best people engaged. So again, Chris, what would you say are the things you've taken in terms of hiring and retention based on your experiences over the last year? Maybe your observations as someone running a business consultancy as well, because I imagine you're picking up quite a few examples from your customers.
Yeah, we hear
so
certainly
yeah.
some key kind of signals where we've been hearing, not just during COVID, but even before then, but I think it's more like accelerated, is the importance of culture.
Yes.
And most organizations kind of blame culture. Is the culture stupid? That's why we're not transforming or not as fast as we want to. Culture is a risk to kind of this change.
Yeah.
I think too many companies have kind of used that excuse, but actually culture is kind of the shadow of leadership to some extent, right?
Yeah.
But you can also work as HR with culture in terms of saying, do we understand our current culture and subcultures between IT, sales, ops, finance, and so, because actually everyone's not the same, right?
Yes.
Second, do we know how to actually drive the kind of culture that we need to deliver these business results from our strategy to become the new us? So I think that kind of more interest in culture is certainly one, and looking at using culture to create engagement, the kind of work experiences that will delight employees so they can delight customers.
Based on your observations, what does good culture look like?
I don't think there is one answer to that, because I think it's very different if you are in a railroad business or you're running a bank or you're in a fintech, right? So I think there isn't one right answer for that. I think it depends on your strategy. Culture is an enabler of that, but I do think that there are some common themes around people feeling they can be heard, people feeling their work is meaningful, that they're being respected, they have opportunities to grow, it's easy to communicate across the organization as change is becoming faster and so on, the need to kind of align. But it's certainly not only digital. Many people think of culture, it's just about having Workplace or Slack or something replacing email, not just WhatsApp, right?
So you think
there's much more to it, leadership, even Workplace. We will go back to the office at some point for some other time.
Absolutely. So you think businesses are more ready to have that conversation? Business leaders are more ready to accept feedback on whether their culture needs improving and make it more front and center as a consideration?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a realization that it's a risk if we don't get it done. It's not so much that we are super interested in culture in that sense, but I think it's a concern that if we don't move how our people think and feel and act, we're not going to be able to be the new us that the world is asking us to be, right?
Absolutely. And it's quantifiable in terms of return on investment as well.
Absolutely. I mean, companies that have a great enabling culture are much more successful at driving strategic change than companies that haven't invested and haven't been conscious about how they curate a culture, I guess you can say.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Vishnu, you've worked for various organizations at in the senior talent acquisition capacity. So I imagine you've made some observations over the last year in terms of shifting hiring patterns and trends and approaches. Be really interested to hear some perspectives on that.
Well, first and foremost, I would have to say that organizations really need to focus more on hiring for core competencies rather than someone from a similar industry background or last job title. And ultimately just focus on that, because that's really what can bring things across in terms of the talent you require. Some of these jobs are very new. Things like data science and whatnot. There's a very short supply of data scientists in the Malaysian market in particular.
Yes.
So what companies maybe should do is look further upstream to target youth, kids who are good at statistics, good in math, and make sure that they're channeled towards the right career pathway. I find that there's a lot of brain drain upstream. People who miss the boat and who are still good in math but who never quite transition into the right path.
Yeah, when you say brain drain, you're not talking about people leaving Malaysia, you're just talking about people not being capitalized upon in terms of their talent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and nurtured. Yeah. I mean, if Malaysia wants to create 500,000 jobs in digital over the next 3 years, there has to be better use of the existing raw material, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And also opening up to foreign talent as well.
Yeah.
I think we've done a fairly good job of that, but there needs to be more. Every international city is highly reliant on foreign talent. We can't be the exception. So we need to be a bit more progressive in terms of that. Of course, there's competition for this talent. So maybe targeting people from parts of the world that may not traditionally go to the Singapores or the Hong Kongs of the world that would typically pay them more to be there.
Yeah, of course, that's not selling out. It's bringing talent in to nurture local talent. Absolutely, that makes sense.
And people talk a lot about returning Malaysians. I think there's a place for that, but also maybe do more with the Malaysians that we have here, coupled with being more open to foreign talent in these niche areas, because there can be that. If you bring like experienced developers or data scientists over from countries like Egypt or Iran or wherever, and make sure that there's good cross-pollination between local talent and foreign talent, then you can scale a little bit better.
Absolutely, absolutely. One thing, Vishnu, I'd be really interested in your perspective on is the role of automation in hiring. I'm wondering if you'd care to comment on that, because I think there's this sort of insistence that with new tools and technologies and sort of data, that you can almost replace human interaction, which I think to some extent is true, but there is obviously a limitation on that. I'm just wondering if you could comment on the balance between human interaction or automation and the role of good hiring, based on your observations and experience, and where that line might be. Where do you need to draw the line in terms of, look, this is fine for tools and automation and platforms, but this is where we need to step in and use the judgment?
Yeah, look, I think everyone should be working with the best tools.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised at some really big companies not necessarily even having an ATS or something simple like that. But all recruiters and all HR departments should be working with the best tools, but we should not discount the importance of the human element.
Sure.
So your tools are only as good as the people that use them.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, HR departments and talent acquisition departments are severely under-resourced, I would say.
Yeah.
And I understand. Maybe you don't want to have like 15 recruiters on your payroll if you're only going to need that capacity for a short period of time. But there are other options. There's RPO. There's vendors who can step in and serve as your internal TA for the time that you need to scale things up.
Yeah, absolutely. And from an employer branding perspective as well, just that phone call from talent acquisition or HR or the line manager can make a world of difference, right?
True.
Yeah.
Not just in terms of reaching out to talent, but also in terms of overall candidate experience.
Yeah.
Like what I always like to do is, as a recruiter, I would always have a rejection day.
Yeah.
Where I'd call people up and tell them they didn't get the job. And yeah, of course you're delivering bad news, but they'll respect you for it, and it actually enhances your EVP, because you don't just ghost them or leave them hanging.
Yeah. And you can leave on a good note, and maybe in a year's time when you do want to speak to that candidate again, that's going to be an easier conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So PC, really interested in I appreciate you've done some rapid upscaling over the last year or so. So it'd be great to hear from your perspective.
So I think I will touch on the automation bit, because right now I'm in the gig economy, right? So it's just massive hiring at what we're doing right now. So of course there are a lot of things where we think about, is there a way to do this faster and better without having to put people there, right? So it's talent acquisition still, but in a very different perspective, which is mass hiring and day in, day out doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But because we're in healthcare, we cannot compromise on quality.
Yes.
So we still need to have people physically calling. We try putting in tests. We try putting in empathy tests. And we realize, no, people will just drop out anyway. And we're talking about good talents where people are recently retrenched, example. They want a job and they come to this gig economy, right? And then they realize that I'm just doing this because I'm in between jobs. But what do? Do you hire them or do you not, right? So that's where you really need a human intervention to say, you know what, I think I can still help you because you've got this great character, so we'll still get you on. And then internally here, when we also have nurses on our side. So what I have been doing is, when we interview nurses, we realize that actually our nurses have got such great quality, but yet they are not staying in Malaysia. Because why? A nurse of 15, 20 years experience, they're only earning about 3K to 5K max. So why should I stay here in Malaysia when I can go over to Dubai and get paid in US dollars.
Yes.
So that's talent retention in Malaysia in itself. And we're just looking at nurses.
Yes.
Right? And then understanding that why are nurses such a skilled job, blue collar? So that's the other thing. So I think there's the discrepancy between white collar jobs and blue collar jobs.
Yeah, of course. In your industry, you've got the digital platform, so you're hiring the sort of trendy digital specialists and the data scientists and what have you, and the software engineers, and also, as you refer to, the blue collar workers as well. So you've got a unique set of challenges there. How I'm really interested to hear your views on how you've built in a sort of retention culture into the businesses you work for. I think that's a feature of your your track record. You've built and retained large teams of highly sought after staff. So I'd be really interested in your perspectives.
So I think when I first started, or even before going into healthcare, right? So it was all really, let's get out there fast and quick, faster than the competition and things like that. It is vicious because if you are the first mover, you're putting in a lot of money. And if you are the last one on board, you're not getting anything anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it's about how do we retain that same motivation, and if the startup is, 50 people, it's very hard to steer the ship. So it's also difficult to cascade down the message fast enough.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where people ops is very important, because business people like us is like, let's just get there quick, right? The people element, buddy, can you help me out with this, right? So to me, I work very closely with our talent or people ops, because to me is, you will have to balance me up in that sense. So, and then moving into now healthcare, I realized that everyone is just very nice. And to me is, niceness will not get me there, you see? So it's still balancing that out. And if you want to, I read this somewhere, right? If you want to be nice, I'll be out there selling ice cream. But I'm not selling ice cream right now. So to me, I work very closely with people ops. I tell you that this is my direction and I want to get there fast. You have to compliment me, right?
Right, so it's a degree of delegation and tag teaming to get the job done as well at the same time.
Ultimately, it's still trust at that level.
But with the personal touch as well, I mean, they still get access to you, they still get to hear the vision of the business from your direction.
So I think the cadence of communications like town hall, bi-weekly catch-ups, or even every now and then when you know that there's somebody who's not doing well, because we all read reports anyway. It does not harm you to have that 5 minutes to just call up that person and say, hey, is things going all right? So that personal touch can just have a really big impact. Absolutely. And then with recently, there's so many talks about mental health. So I'm one of those that I don't get it initially, because to me it's that, we should just keep going, right?
Stiff upper lip.
But then I start to realize that they are actually following up with calls, doing other work that is past hours. And I see emails at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And that's when I go, oh crap, they are not compartmentalizing their work-life balance. And that's where you kind of realize, okay, that is mental health.
That's the point to intervene. So how do you deal with that? How would you control that situation?
I always believe in, you need to exercise that first. So when I show the team that, all right, it's 6 o'clock, I'm going out for my run. I just need to have that break outside. So when you start doing that and they realize that it's okay. And maybe because it's in Asia, right? People always say, oh, the boss is still working, so I still have to work. Of course. People will emulate the leadership. It starts from the top down, right? So do you practice what you preach? Oh, absolutely. I'll still go out for my run at, used to be at 6:30, but it's a bit hot these days, so I'll do it at 7. Good stuff. If we really want to change things, I think it needs to start with the supply, which is our education system.